All right, here we go. Good morning, guys. Clayton, JMart with me. We're going to go through all the bowl games, the non-playoff bowl games. And just so everyone knows, this is the third time we're trying because my internet is playing tricks on me. So I guarantee this time it's going to be perfect. Let's go through them. Navy's playing Army today. We'll end with that. How about that? We'll end with Navy Army. Let's just start with all these bowl games, see if we can find some value. South Alabama, Western Michigan. That's the first one. South Alabama -8.5. 57.5, Veterans Bowl. JMart, sell this game to me. Who do we like?
I mean, yeah, I don't know too much about either team. Going into the season, I know South Alabama was supposed to be a pretty solid team, I think, Conference USA. Western Michigan's a little middle of the pack in the MAC. So I would assume the line makes sense. South Alabama, I think, is probably a more talented team. But again, with mid-majors, if you know who's in the portal, who's not, because a lot of guys will enter, that can also change the environment of the game. Yeah. I just don't know too much about either of these teams.
Yeah, I figured there's be some of these games where Clayton, you got the pass button if you need it. Like, not a Western Michigan expert, but if you are, now would be a good time to tell us how this game's going to play out.
No, yeah, I definitely don't know much, but I don't think it should go without saying that South Alabama did beat an opponent 87-10 earlier this year. So they must have a pretty powerful offense. I'm sure the line makes sense. Somewhat tied in with that.
So you have to, the number one thing with like bowl games, I would say, is line shopping. You want to do it with every bet possible, but bowl games in particular, there's going to be a lot of fluctuation with line movement. Guys, like things change real fast. Do yourself a favor and just know that there's nobody knows who's going to win these games, but it is easier once you know who's in the transfer portal, who's not playing. So make sure you find the best line because some books will get more money on certain teams. And you'll find 8.5 some spots, could be 9.5 another spot. All right, so that's the only one for today. And then I guess I'm going to be like the schedule guy too as we go through this. It's unbelievable. I don't know how long this is going to be sustainable having all these bowl games, but we got it this year, so let's go through it. So the next one, December 17th, that is going to be what? The 17th is Tuesday, right? So that's Memphis and West Virginia. Standalone game, 9 o'clock. Memphis -5 at West Virginia. I shouldn't say at West Virginia. Memphis is -5. The total's 59. The Coffee Frisco Bowl. Don't know much about Memphis except they beat Florida State, which seems kind of irrelevant at this point. West Virginia got beat by Penn State earlier in the year, and I remember being like, wasn't super impressed. But that's the extent of my knowledge on those two teams. Clayton, what about you? What do you got?
Yeah, looking at Memphis, they've had a decently hard schedule for being a group of 5 team, and they've played decently well against some of those opponents. But West Virginia's just kind of beat who they should and lost to who they should have. So take it as you will there.
And then, Memphis just lost to Tulane. Do you think that now they're favored by 5 points? I would think they would have less to play for in this game. Any insight on it?
They might, again, you're talking about a group of 5 team with a lot of guys that might enter the portal. What Clayton said makes sense. Like West Virginia beats who they should, loses to who they should lose to. I lean here probably Memphis will win and cover just because, again, West Virginia, that's just seems to be their MO this year. And Memphis finished pretty solid. It was a decent end of the season. So I do like Memphis in this spot to probably win by a touchdown.
Cool. The following day, the 18th, Wednesday, we got 2 games. Whoa, this line has jumped. And then this is the thing. The lines are going to move all over the place. So as we're recording it now, it's what the line is. James Madison started off as a 3-point line, and it's all the way up to 9.5. They're playing Western Kentucky. What do I know about James Madison? They scored a gazillion points against North Carolina. The total's 52. Another thing we should keep in mind, the location of these games is really important. So this one's in Boca in Florida. Not big of a travel one way or the other. Clayton, thoughts on James Madison? Or should they be 9.5-point favorites?
I don't know much about James Madison and why that line is the case. I expect Western Kentucky's got some transfers if the line jumped that dramatically. But when I do look at Western Kentucky, last week of the regular season, they played Jacksonville State at home and won. And then they went to Jacksonville State the following week for the conference championship and got absolutely blown out, which I thought was really interesting. Yeah. That those games had such different outcomes, but can't say much about JMU.
What do you think, JMart?
If the lines move that much because of transfers, what I typically think is that they probably won't be able to adjust it enough to the true value of the transfers. If it's going to jump a touchdown, that means Western Kentucky's lost some serious heavy hitters on both sides of the ball, most likely, which means I'd assume James Madison will probably come in with a significant advantage, especially in the locker room and situations like that.
So later that night, California, UNLV. UNLV is a wild team this year. They had a chance. This is one where I would lean towards California because UNLV had a chance to make that playoffs, right? If they would have beat Boise State, they don't. Now they got to play a game against California. What do I know about California? They should have beat Miami. That was one of the best games. I think I've talked about that now 7 times. So California, UNLV. JMart, what do you think about this one?
The big thing here is I do believe California's quarterback entered the transfer portal, and he was a big part of the offense, and he's a big deal in the transfer portal right now. I do think UNLV might have a little more to play for. They can say it was a really good season. They bounced back almost, really, if you think about it, almost made the college football playoffs, which is kind of nuts.
Right.
So I think they have more to play for here. Not sure on the line, but I would lean UNLV just because I love their quarterback. I love their offense, and I don't think Cal has as much momentum going into this game.
Clayton, I was thinking that UNLV would just be depressed to play this game. You agree more with JMart? They'll be excited to play?
Honestly, I would probably think that they'd be more like depressed to play this game, given that they could have gotten in the playoff. But I really don't know what to think here because these are two teams I think that both are having new coaches come in next year. So I'm not sure how that's going to affect who's coaching in this game.
That
transfers,
sounds
anything like that. But
I was gonna say the way we're talking about this game sounds like if you just want to bet on this game, just to bet on it. That's what a lot of these games come down to, where it's like, I don't really know exactly what's going to go on. Or if you have a strong opinion on who the next coach is going to be, that's why I feel a little guilty doing the pilot because I'm not betting on these games. To me, it's really hard to bet on them. But I was saying it to, I don't know if it was to you, JMart, or somebody else the other day. But I actually think there's more value betting on bowl games or like preseason games than regular season NFL because if you're able to do the research, one team might really want to play that game more than the other. So at this point, I have not found a game that I love, but hopefully we still got a few days to get there. All right, so the following day, Georgia Southern's playing Sam Houston. I don't know if people are going to stop what they're doing to watch that one. That's going to be on Thursday night. We'll also have the NFL game. Quick thoughts on this one. Sam Houston's Georgia Southern's the 6-point favorite. Hey, Mark, anything?
Georgia Southern played a lot of teams early this season really close and have actually been a pretty solid in and out, like game in, game out team to play against. Sam Houston, again, they just came up, but they've been really solid since they've come up into FBS. I like Georgia Southern more. It's a homer call because I will support the Georgia team, but I think Southern's shown that they can actually hang with like solid Power 5 teams, and I do trust them a little more to come in, probably, win and cover.
Clayton, rolling with Georgia Southern here?
Most likely, just thinking about what they did against Boise State early in the year, that was a really good game, shootout type of game. And Sam Houston just kind of came out of nowhere. They were really bad last year. I'm not sure what propelled them to make the huge leap that they did this year, but I don't have a whole lot of knowledge about them.
Alrighty, now we start to get to a little bit more action. So the following Friday, next Friday, Indiana's playing Notre Dame at 8 o'clock. That'll be the first of the playoff bowl games. We're going to do our whole playoff bowls pod next week, but they'll have, what's it look like, 2 games beforehand. So Ohio, Jacksonville State, that's the next one on our list. Ohio, that line's moved up a point now. They're 3.5-point favorites. Jacksonville State won. Both teams actually won their conference championship, right? Jacksonville State won, and Ohio beat Miami of Ohio. Totals 54. Thoughts on this one, Clayton? Ohio, Jacksonville State?
I think you probably got to look at the transfers here, but I think the MAC was probably a little bit stronger of a conference than Conference USA was this year, so I think that might have something to do with it. But other than that, I can't really say much.
Yeah, Ohio, JMart was a big underdog against Miami of Ohio, correct? And then they just killed them. And Jacksonville State beat the crap out of Western Kentucky, like Clayton mentioned. How do you see this game going?
Well, yeah, that's another thing is that Ohio beating Miami of Ohio was a big deal. Like a lot of people talked about it. A lot of people saw it. So you can look at this line as one of those that has probably just moved with the money. I think Jacksonville State can sneaky beat them. Ohio is a good team this year. Obviously, they won their conference, but I think they're getting built up a little higher than they actually are. And I think that the value here probably is with Jacksonville State, who, again, won their conference handedly as well and are probably just as hot, if not hotter, than Ohio at the moment.
Gotcha. This one, I was a little surprised to see Florida's a 14-point favorite against Tulane. Tulane, they were a big underdog against Memphis, and then they beat them by 2 touchdowns, right? They beat them by 11. Now they're getting 14. My gut tells me the Florida players aren't super excited for this game, but then the other part of me tells me that Florida is using this game for recruiting. They got to find a way to beef up their roster, and they're going to keep the coach. I don't know too much about Tulane. JMart, what do you think about this game? And the total it's only 49.5. So I guess they really think Florida's just going to kick their ass like 31-10, 31-17, something like that. Is that how you see it coming up?
Yeah, Tulane's quarterback went to the portal, I think, which is the reason this line's moved. He was basically that entire offense. Like, he was phenomenal for them. And Florida's been a super weird culture team this year. They've taken a lot of pride in what they've done every game, win or loss. The team has stood behind their coach really well. And so I do think they'll come out really motivated to win the game for Billy Napier, for like the whole Florida culture thing. I think this line's drastically low. I do think Florida, like, they haven't been the most dynamic offense, but at the same time, I just think there's a massive skill gap between them and Tulane, especially with Tulane losing their best offensive piece to the portal.
There you go. And then the number did go from 9.5 to 14. So that explains. So they were going to be a 9.5-point favorite with Tulane's quarterback in there. It's the 14, you're nodding your head. You see it the same way, Clayton?
Yeah, just about. Florida's definitely, they've changed how, I guess what Jack's saying, their culture throughout the year. I think their mindset just around the whole team has improved a whole lot throughout the year. And like Jack was saying, this could be big for recruiting. Billy Napier has shown that he's still a really good recruiter despite their on-the-field struggles this year. So,
yeah, I was impressed with when Florida beat LSU, and it was just the energy. It felt like, man, at least when I was growing, it always was like the hardest place to play was in Florida. So, yeah, that kind of makes sense there. And then that Saturday, so a week from today, we'll have the 3 playoff bowl games, right? We got Clemson, Texas, SMU, Penn State, and then Tennessee and Ohio State. Then Sunday, we get the break for the NFL, and now we'll sprint towards probably the best week of football for the entire year as we just have so many games nonstop. And we're trying to figure out who's going to make the NFL playoffs. And in the middle of it, we'll start having random college football games as soon as we wake up and while we're trying to have lunch. And that's what's going to happen starting next Monday. So not in 2 days, but a week from then. First one, 11 o'clock, we got Coastal Carolina against the Roadrunners, a UTSA. I know Coastal Carolina has a blue field, and they're not playing home. That's about the extent of my knowledge. And UTSA is an 8.5-point favorite. Thoughts here, JMart?
Not much. I know UTSA beat Illinois last year, but I don't think that helps too much going into this season. This is one, truly can't provide any value here.
Clayton, before you go, this is one where if you think about betting on this game, like the psychology of it is you had the 3 college football playoff games on Saturday, plus another 2 games, plus all kinds of other stuff. Then you had Sunday football to bet. If you really have to bet 11 o'clock that Monday, I don't know if this is the best pod for you, to be honest. And if you have a strong opinion on it, that's great. But can you point us in the right direction on this one, Clayton, or are we going to the next game?
Well, I see that UTSA is favored by 8.5 points, but I will point out that it's pretty interesting that this actually is a home game for Coastal Carolina. This bowl is played at their stadium.
How did I make that joke?
Yeah, it's the Myrtle Beach Bowl, which they play in Conway, which is where Coastal is. So I'm wondering if that'll play a role in it. I think this is one you'd kind of have to dig in and see who's really motivated to play in this game or not. But
the app that I'm using could have at least done me a favor and make Coastal Carolina the home team. They have them as the road team. But yeah
technically the road team. But
all right, I'm betting Coastal Carolina. I got the blue field. I'll be the degenerate at 11 o'clock in the morning betting on Coastal Carolina. So they're home and they're getting 8.5 points. That probably means they're going to lose by 30, right?
That's what I'm thinking.
Actually, that's a perfect vacation for UTSA. Like that's a great area, by the way. That like Myrtle Beach, Conway area. It's a really nice area. I'd go to school there if I could rewind the clock. All right, let's move on. Northern Illinois, Fresno State. That one's at 2:30. Same day. So there's only 2 games. You know what? They've literally done this for gamblers. Like they'll do 2 games on Monday, and they're like, "You guys got Monday Night Football. It's fine. We don't have to do a game at Monday night." This is unbelievable. All right, Northern Illinois -3 at Fresno State. This one's in Idaho. I know that because it's the Idaho Potato Bowl. Northern Illinois -3, 40.5 points. I know everyone's going to bet Northern Illinois because they beat Notre Dame. But is Fresno better than them? JMart, what do you think?
Again, it's one of those where you have to look at it and say the money's going to be on Northern Illinois. The value's probably with Fresno State. Northern Illinois, yes, beat Notre Dame. It didn't end up being the season they probably wanted to have. And this is a substantially closer game for Fresno State. Really, they just have to go to Boise, and then that's it. I do kind of like Fresno State here a little more. I don't really love Northern Illinois at -3 under these circumstances. I think Fresno probably has the better case. It's also weird that they put both of the blue field teams on the same day. I don't know what the point of that was, but that's kind of interesting.
You know what? You guys it's just a good point again. All right, what do you think, Clayton?
I don't really have much to say here, but I think that is a good point that I think a lot of people will be betting with Northern Illinois, just knowing that they beat Notre Dame. So the fact that they're only favored by 3, I think that line could be a little influenced by what they think people are going to be.
No, I'm holding on to what JMart said. It's who the hell from Northern Illinois wants to go? That's not a vacation spot. They're playing you got to think of it like that. Hey guys, we're going to go watch the bowl game. Where are we going? Boise, Idaho. No, thank you. So I would expect 75-80% Fresno State fans. Is that fair?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
This is the bowl game that everyone wants to go to. This is where you bring your family. I don't know how the pay works and all that kind of jazz, but the Hawaii Bowl. So that one's going to be on Tuesday. Christmas Eve, we got a game in Hawaii. Okay. South Florida, San Jose State. San Jose State's -4, total 62. Thoughts on this one, J-Mark?
I know San Jose State has a great receiver. I know that. Outside of that, I don't know too much about either of these teams. I thought USF wasn't going to make a bowl, to be entirely honest. So, yeah, I don't know much else. It's a closer game for San Jose State. That's all I can really say. It's just a.
Thank you for that. Yes, yes, that one is true. It's a quicker trip from San Jose to Hawaii than it is from South Florida to Hawaii. Clayton, is South Florida really good? J-Mart just doesn't know it, or what do we think here?
Yeah, most of South Florida's games against good or ranked opponents, they kind of got blown out. It was another one of those situations where they lost who you'd expect them to lose to. I think if that receiver who's really good, I can't remember his name, but I think he's number 1 in the nation for receiving yards. If he's playing for San Jose State, then I'm sure he wins. They're already favored. So given what I know about USF, I would probably take San Jose State.
This is the game where if you fly to Hawaii and hang around the teams, you might be able to figure out who's ready to play or who's not. So if you're betting on that one on Christmas Eve, good for you. Again, I'm not judging anybody. It's all entertainment. Just don't bet real money on some of these games when you're just guessing. That would be my only caveat to it. All right, so then Christmas, somehow we have 2 NFL games. We'll talk about that another time, but that's what we got. College football takes a break on Christmas. They're going to get back at it the following day. I'm losing track of the days. I'm pretty sure this is a Thursday. We got Pittsburgh and Toledo. Pittsburgh -7 against Toledo. Total's 51.5. I swear I never understand the MAC teams, and I'll always get them wrong. Pittsburgh, I feel like they're the team that beat who they should and then who they shouldn't. Where are we at with Pittsburgh against Toledo?
Yeah, Pittsburgh started out really hot and then lost. I think they started out 7-0 and then finished 0-5. But they had some really close games in that final stretch. They really should have beat Clemson at home. I think they had a close one with Virginia Tech. But looking at Toledo, the one thing I remember about them is them blowing out Mississippi State on the road. So I think they're still a solid MAC player, but the fact that they weren't in their championship just makes them kind of hard to read for me. But I do like it.
A quick sidebar. You guys going to get rid of Mississippi State anytime soon? Their relevance in the SEC, they're just there for whatever reason, right?
They're still too good at baseball. They can't get rid of them. They still that's their thing. They're just really good at baseball. Yeah.
I think they're solid at basketball this year too, and I think they're still top 25 in the nation for football recruiting. So hopefully they'll be back up somewhat. But
yeah, as they say, they just can't. They always seem to be at the bottom there in the SEC, but. How does that match up with you, J-Mart? Toledo, Pittsburgh, getting 7 points. Toledo, do you see value in that? I would think Pittsburgh's not excited to play this game. Like Clayton said, they started off hot, and then they've just been on a losing streak.
No, this is a perfect spot to buy high on or buy low on Toledo, get them for really good value. Against a Pitt team that, again, just really doesn't have anything to play for here. Doesn't mean much to them, and Toledo has the opportunity to say they knocked off an ACC team. I think
And
that's the information that they need. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say also really good recruiting purposes for Toledo. It's not that that university is not too far from Pittsburgh. They're getting an opportunity to say, hey, we can hang with a team like that. So yeah, that would be my instincts. The next game that day, so we got 3 games that day. The next one is Rutgers and Kansas State. Kansas State -7. I love Kansas State's program, the way they just it's very consistent. Totals 50.5. Any thoughts? I don't know too much about Rutgers this year. Clayton, what do you think about this game?
Yeah, I did like Kansas State a lot coming into the year. I thought they could have been the team to make it out of the Big 12, but Rutgers kind of just snuck into a bowl game position. Looking at their schedule, it seems like they played decently well down the stretch. Didn't really play anyone difficult besides Illinois, which they only lost by 1 touchdown. But I still like Kansas State, just going off what I know about their roster, how I know they can perform against good teams.
What do you think, JMart?
Yeah, Rutgers held their own against Illinois really well. Probably should have beaten Illinois. Just was I think it was like Hail Mary at the end that won it for Illinois. So Rutgers really is right there with Illinois in that game. That being said, I think Kansas State is, again, super consistent, well-run program that'll actually show up to a bowl game and be ready to play. I like him here. I like him here a lot.
Yeah, I was gonna say the guy's been there forever, that coach. So I think there will be. I do like Kansas State there. The last game that night, they do know what they're doing. They put the worst games at like 9:00 at night. Arkansas State Bowling Green. Bowling Green's -7. I think my natural reaction would be if Bowling Green's favored by 7 points, then I should just take Bowling Green because why in God's name are they favored by 7 points? But I love the Arkansas State Red Wolves. That would be my nickname if I was coming up with a team. I love that. And I think I tried playing with them in the college football video game one time because I just was trying to find the worst team, and I think they were right there. So that's the extent of my knowledge. Clayton, what we got? Arkansas State getting 7 against Bowling Green.
Yeah, looking at Bowling Green, they've actually got like one of the best tight ends in the nation receiving yards wise. I can't remember his first name, but it's like Fannin Jr., and he's got more receiving yards than Tyler Warren. So I think you got to look at if he's playing. I'm not sure if he's planning to go to the NFL, what his next plans are, but I think they've got a pretty dynamic offense, and I think a lot of that goes through him. I really thought it was interesting how high he is on the receiving yards list as a tight end.
All right, there you go. JMart?
I agree with them. They have a tight end that's really good that probably just shouldn't play in this bowl if we're being honest, and should probably just go for the draft. They do run an interesting quarterback set where they do the Jake Fromm, Justin Fields kind of trade-off thing. They have a starter that throws and a backup that comes in to run the ball. That's about all I know about Bowling Green, though. Yeah.
A hell of a lot more than I do.
Did they do that with Lucian Anderson?
Yeah.
The following day we're getting 3 games, 4 games, 5 games. There we go. December 27th. I'm really losing track of the days here, so it's not super relevant. I'm assuming this is a set. Forget it. Oklahoma's playing Navy. I think part of this is let's see what Navy looks like. They're going to be playing Army this afternoon, but Oklahoma's quarterback's gone, right? Jackson Arnold's headed to Auburn. Oklahoma, really disappointing year. It started with that nighttime loss to Tennessee where I was like, oh, you guys can't move the ball. Tennessee just took the wheel right out of them. And then Oklahoma just hasn't been good. But they're 8.5-point favorites against Navy. We can do a little bit of Navy Army here. But tell me what we think of Navy first. JMart, why don't you go?
For this game, I would definitely wait, see how Navy looks after Army Navy. But the other big thing is that Navy won't have guys jumping in the portal. Like, this is going to be the same team that plays against Army, will be the same team playing against Oklahoma. Oklahoma still has a lot of time for a lot of guys to jump into the portal. I'm not 100% sure. I know Jackson Arnold's in the portal. I thought I saw stuff about the backup also maybe jumping into the portal as well. So ultimately what it comes down to is I think it's a perfect matchup for Navy. Oklahoma doesn't really have a dynamic offense, and I think it's going to get less dynamic with whoever plays quarterback for them. I just think this is a perfect – I don't think Navy's going to lose this game. I think Brett Venables can get them into a pretty good spot to defend a triple option offense, but I don't think they're going to be able to score against Navy's defense at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think this Navy – we'll do Navy Army at the end. I don't know why I set you up for that. But, yeah, I tend to go with the team that I know is excited to be there for sure. Navy will definitely be excited. Is there a world though, Clayton, where Oklahoma gets it together and just maybe can't score? Because Oklahoma's defense is really good. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I think it'll probably be a pretty low-scoring game just because I'm not at all confident in Oklahoma's offense either. But it seems like Navy kind of fell off. They were doing really well for a second. It seemed like they had an opportunity at making their conference championship, which against Army before the Army-Navy game would have been hilarious. I really wish that happened.
Right.
But if Oklahoma's backup quarterback is transferring too, I think back to that South Carolina game. Both quarterbacks just looked awful, but they do have a good rush defense. Obviously, Navy's a run-heavy team, so I think it'll be low scoring, but I really don't think Oklahoma will be able to get anything going on offense.
My suggestion would be if you like Navy, bet them now, because if they lose the Army and got blown out, they'd be even more pissed off. I don't think the number would necessarily change. And if they do win today, because they're the 6-point underdog, that number will go down. So if you like Navy, take Navy now would be my suggestion. Georgia Tech Vanderbilt. This is like a low-key good game. Like both teams were good this year. So now we're starting to get to some of the better teams. Georgia Tech's program. I mean, Georgia Tech, everyone loves their coach. I'm down here in Georgia, get a lot of media. Georgia Tech doing a really good job building that program up, but Vanderbilt's a good program too. So it's a 2.5-point spread. Which way are we leaning here, JMart? Because I know you know both these teams pretty well. It is the Birmingham Bowl, so I'm assuming that means Alabama, right? So, JMart, what do we think here?
Yeah, so the big thing for Tech is that they're missing their key wide receiver. He entered the portal, I think Eric Singleton. He's in the portal now. A lot of big teams are looking at him, so it makes their offense even more one-dimensional than a sneaky already was. That being said, their run game is just so good on its own that I think that they could beat Vanderbilt simply running the ball every single play. The other side of the ball with Vanderbilt, you really don't know what version of Vanderbilt you're going to get day in, day out. They have games where they look basically unbeatable. They have games where they come out and it's like, how did you lose to this team? I would lean to trust the Georgia Tech team that's been much more stable, much more consistent. When they've been healthy, they've been a really dangerous team. I think defensively, they're really underrated defensively. They really struggled Georgia. I think that they will make Vanderbilt struggle a good bit too. And I love Georgia Tech here.
Yeah, Clayton, don't you think Georgia Tech really can't wait to play football? Because they had that exhausting game against Georgia, but now they won't be tired because the whole 3 weeks later, month maybe by the time they actually play. Do you see it the same way, or are you leaning more towards the SEC? Because that's the other argument. Hey, you're not going to take an ACC team over an SEC team, are you? But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, given how Georgia Tech's played down the stretch, I'm a lot more confident in them. Even with their star receiver transferring, like Jack was saying, their run game is so dynamic. Haynes King can run the ball really well. Hopefully they aren't running it with him as much as they are in that Georgia game. He got absolutely worn out. But given that Vanderbilt's strengths were kind of middle, early season, they've kind of fell off more towards the end of the season. I'm much more confident in Georgia Tech.
Texas Tech's playing Arkansas, the Liberty Bowl. Liberty Bowl's been around forever. Good old Liberty Bowl. Texas Tech -3 against Arkansas. It's a nice little rivalry game. I feel like these teams used to be in the same conference at some point. Now we got interconference, right? We got Texas Tech in the Big 12. Arkansas is in the SEC. 3-point spread. JMart, you got a strong opinion on this one?
Not too much of one. All I'll say is I know Arkansas did beat Tennessee. That happened at one point this season. So that may give some value there. What I will say with SEC bowl games, typically the lower teams that make it will lose a shocking amount of games. I've seen every year people will look at like the SEC win losses in bowl games and it's not as good as they expect. It's normally due to the lower tier teams just not really performing that well. I do think this is one of those games where Texas Tech just kind of has more to play for. I like Texas Tech a little more here.
Makes sense to me. Clayton, thoughts?
Yeah, I agree pretty much with what Jack's saying. Do want to mention that Arkansas had one of their running backs enter the transfer portal as well, so I think that could affect their run-heavy offense.
And then, so they got two. Yeah, there's a late game that night too. So then the Holiday Bowl is Syracuse and Washington State. I'm leading Washington State here. Syracuse is an 8.5-point favorite, but Syracuse already won the Super Bowl. Like they beat Miami, they had a huge celebration. I feel like that line's inflated. It was 5.5, it went to 8.5. I'm not a Washington State expert here, but it just seems like way too many points. Am I missing something, Clayton?
Well, looking at Washington State down the stretch, they actually are coming off 3 losses to Wyoming, Oregon State, and New Mexico, they were all one possession games, but they really kind of fell off. I think a lot of people thought they could slip in as a playoff team there for a little bit, but yeah, I'm not sure what to think. I kind of like Syracuse just given how they played. I trust Kyle McCord at quarterback. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking there.
How do you look at it, JMart, from Syracuse's perspective? They beat Miami. They're in a really good mood. They're just going to keep it going, or a little bit of a letdown?
This game feels like a textbook. Like Kyle McCord's going to go out there and throw the ball 50 fucking times for like 450 yards, like 4 touchdowns, 2 picks. It feels like they're just going to let it be the Kyle McCord show and just say, dude, do what you want, throw as much as you want. Let's just see what happens here. I think it'll work on Washington State. Again, they ended the season pretty poorly. If you're losing to Wyoming down the stretch, it's a really bad look for your team. I see McCord's just going to sling it if he plays, and yeah, I think it should work.
Is he an NFL quarterback, you think?
I think he'll be a hell of a backup, but I don't think he's got the consistency to start.
It's like a poor man's Baker Mayfield, the way he plays a little bit.
Yeah, like he just loves throwing the football, and he's got arm talent that's good enough to like keep him in the league way longer than he should. But at the same time, decision making and the accuracy can be pretty horrendous at points. So
yeah. Okay. Well, good stuff there. And then the late game that night in Vegas is Texas. I love Texas A&M here. Wow. Texas A&M against USC. Vegas. That's the type of game where those that oil money will let's go out to Vegas here and celebrate the new year. And USC has already been to Vegas to start the year against. They won though, so they have that going for them. They beat LSU to start the year. But I love Texas A&M here. I just feel like USC is just a weaker team. It feels like Texas A&M should beat them up. Tell me if I'm missing something here, JMart. But they're 3.5-point favorites.
Yeah, I mean Miller Moss is in the portal right now, so I know USC's backup has been pretty solid, but he made some mistakes late against Notre Dame that cost him pretty bad. That being said, yeah, Texas A&M is steady. They're a strong front line team with a decent. They haven't been using Connor Wegman as much, anyways, even though he's now also in the portal. I do think A&M shows up a little more than USC will here. I think they have just a little more to play for. They want to back Elko in his first year. I do like them here. I think they're already a more talented team, and I think they have the momentum on their side too.
To play devil's advocate, though, Clayton, is Texas A&M going to be a little too depressed that they just couldn't get it going against Texas and just kind of lay an egg? Or because I think JMart and I both think they're going to come out and kick their ass, but I guess that element's there, right? Like, damn, we were this close to making the playoffs, and now it's gone.
Yeah, that's a good point, but I'm definitely on y'all's side too. Just given that Miller Moss isn't playing, I'm already not high on USC at all. They've got some really suspect losses. I look at that Maryland game was really bad for them. Plus, like Jack was saying, I think Texas A&M will want to back Mike Elko in his first year. They're coming off 2 losses, which is rough. I think they want to end on a win. I think that's a good argument. They could be a little depressed, I guess, after those losses, but. I think Marcel Reed will play in the game too. I don't think they'll have too many people transferring out.
And I think with some of the better teams that their players still have a chance to make a name for themselves. Going to Vegas, I think it'll be hard to be quote unquote depressed. All right, I finally figured out what day of the week we are. We're all the way back 2 weeks from today. Will be Saturday, the 28th, and we got a bunch of games. So we're gonna keep rolling here. We're gonna get through them. UConn, North Carolina. Bill Belichick is not coaching this game. But I would bet isn't North Carolina going to destroy them? This is like an audition for Bill Belichick. It's only a 2.5-point spread. Or is it like all these guys know they're not going to be on the team next year? I don't know what to make of this. We'll do a Belichick thing another day. But UConn at North Carolina, 2.5-point spread. JMart, what do we think here?
What I will say, probably don't bet on this game unless you really want to, because you don't know what North Carolina is going to do. They could be anywhere, all over the place. It is really interesting to see UConn in a bowl game, given how awful they were last year. I'm just happy to see that they're winning games. But yeah, I would typically say UNC is the better team, but at the same time, you don't know what that team's going to be. So it's just a tough spot. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that. Do you have much to add for that one, Clayton?
Yeah, I'm about the same. I know absolutely nothing about UConn this year. Looking at their schedule, they've played some ACC teams pretty well. Almost beat Syracuse, but a lot of one-possession games, so it's hard to tell with them. I've also seen a lot of UNC players. I think they had one of their best receivers enter the transfer portal. I've seen a few UNC players in the portal as well, so not much I can say on this one.
The North Carolina football offseason program will it'll just be fascinating to see how it plays out. Boston College, I lean Boston College here. The spread is 2.5. They're playing Nebraska. I just feel like Boston College is a solid team. I've seen them actually a few times this year, and I'm just not a big fan of Matt Rule in Nebraska. Just not a big fan. JMart, what do we think of this game, though?
Nebraska all season has really come down to how Dylan Raiola is feeling on offense. He's had some games where he's come out and just looked flat out brilliant. He's had games where he's come out and it's been like there's got to be another quarterback on this roster that's worth throwing over him. On the other side, Bill O'Brien runs probably one of the most fun offenses in college football to watch at Boston College. I like Boston College more as a team. I think I know Bill O'Brien's been a little bit of a diva at points, but he's fun to watch on offense. I like him. I would lean him over Nebraska here. This does feel like the kind of game that if Matt Rule loses, he's gone. And I think Nebraska are sneaky at this point, kind of looking for a reason to get him out.
Matt Rule is a really high opinion of himself. I know that much. He's very self-confident about himself. How do you see this game playing out, Clayton?
Yeah, Nebraska is one of the most inconsistent teams all season for me. I really don't know what to think of them. Like Jack was saying, Dylan Raiola, very inconsistent. Some really great games, some not so good. I know Boston College's quarterback entered the transfer portal. I think he's headed to Florida State. I'm not sure if he was starting down the stretch, but I don't know if that'll play into it. But other than that, not much to say on this one.
Louisiana, TCU. They stuck that one in the middle of the afternoon. TCU's minus 12.5. Really don't have too much thoughts on this one. Louisiana lost to Marshall, or they beat Marshall in that championship. Did they beat them?
Marshall won it.
I think they lost, yeah.
Marshall kicked their ass, didn't they?
Yeah.
Okay, so there you go. So that number's gone from 8.5 to 12.5. It's in New Mexico, more of basically a home game for TCU. As we talk about, it's hard for Louisiana people to get excited about going to New Mexico. And they just got kicked. They got their ass kicked in the championship game. So should TCU just blow them out, or is there something else that I'm not looking at here? What do you think, Clayton?
I've got absolutely nothing on this game. I'm not going to lie. I know nothing about either of these teams. So
good. That's the first one. That's all right. JMart, what do you think?
I don't know much about the teams. What I will say, the four-point line move just smells like just TCU backers just putting money on them to win. I don't think there's really – I thought the line was fair, probably 8.5. I don't think TCU's anything special. I think Louisiana's an above-average group of 5 team. I think the line's probably a little inflated at this point, but again – bowl season. I would say the line's probably just moved with money here, though.
Well, I know one thing. Both of these two teams had no desire last week to be in the Pop-Tart Bowl. But nonetheless, that's where Iowa State and Miami have ended up, the freaking Pop-Tart Bowl. I got to take Iowa State because Miami just blew it to Syracuse. It's a 3.5-point spread. Miami's favored. Is Cam Ward? I guess it depends on if he's going to play. Assuming he's playing if it's 3.5-point spread. But I can't take Miami in that spot. But again, Iowa State had a chance, and they couldn't get it done either. What do you think here, Clayton?
Yeah, I think it depends on who all's playing for Miami. I've been seeing that they've had already a lot of guys going into the portal, so I'm not sure if that'll affect it. The line's pretty close. I think it will come down to if Cam Ward plays. Iowa State's defense really did not look great against Arizona State, so I think if Miami's got their pretty much typical offense, then they can get it done in a pretty high-scoring game because it seems like everyone's just able to put up at least 30 points on Miami. But other than that, not too much to say there.
Yeah, I mean, Iowa State really got their ass kicked by Arizona State. So I said I like Iowa State. This game just feels like a really disappointing game. I would like to bet the over in penalties in this game. I feel like it'll be a sloppy game, bunch of false starts, ineligible guy down the field. It just feels like a crappy game. What do you think about it, J-Mark?
I think the smartest bet is to bet on Iowa State if you just feel really good about Cam Ward not playing, maybe Xavier Restrepo not playing. If you feel good about these guys not coming to the game, then bet Iowa State. If you don't, I don't think there's a lot of value in betting on Miami here. It's just a weird game. Again, you're right. Neither of these teams really have much to play for. They were a game away from probably making the college football playoffs, so it's a really bad position to be in for both of them.
Yeah, not probably 100%. Miami was up 21-0. I mean, my God. And then the Kyle McCord experience. And then wasn't Iowa State winning against Arizona State? And then all of a sudden, Arizona State looks like the best team in the nation. So we'll get to them next week. But all right, this is a game I like because I don't like Colorado State at all. Miami, Ohio is -3 against Colorado State. I'm still bitter that Colorado State played one of the most ridiculously sloppy games I've ever seen against Colorado earlier in this year. I still remember that game, and Miami of Ohio got destroyed by Ohio. So I feel like it's not that they don't have anything to play for. They really want to validate this season. They had a really good season, and it ended on a terrible note by Ohio kicking their ass. Now they're favored by 3 against Colorado State in Arizona. It's the Snoop Dogg. What is Snoop Dogg? Never mind. All right, Miami, Ohio -3. What we got here, Clayton?
Miami, Ohio just played in the conference championship. I think Colorado State had more of a disappointing year than Miami of Ohio did. Colorado State, a lot of people were picking them at the beginning of the year to be the Group of 5 playoff team. So I don't know if that'll make them pissed off or just kind of sad not very motivated going into this one. But that's about all I have to give.
What do you think, JMart?
Yeah, there are 2 reads. Either Miami of Ohio is motivated, or they just have guys enter the portal and they just say it's an end of the season, it's whatever. I don't think Colorado State is better than Miami of Ohio if it was just heads up, best talent out there. But we don't really know if that's going to be the case for Miami. So it just comes down to transfers. If you feel good about team, take them. But it's one of those weirder Group of 5 games here.
I'm betting against Colorado State. I saw enough from that quarterback and coach, just complete jackasses. The way they played against Colorado, they had so many personal fouls. Like they just kept getting personal fouls. I'm like, I don't. Anyway, East Carolina, NC State. That's later. We got 2 or 3 more games that day. So NC State is -5 against East Carolina. I mean, NC State was projected. I remember doing a whole pod with Jack before the year started, where NC State could have been the team to win the ACC. They had a disappointing year. Tennessee scored 100 points on them. East Carolina getting 5. I'm not so sure about them. Clayton, you got thoughts on this one? The Military Bowl.
Yeah, East Carolina's pretty middle of the pack for their conference. They've had some pretty rough losses. I just don't see a team like them being able to stick up with even a mid-tier ACC team. But if NC State has a lot of people holding out, I think that might be something to look at.
I was going to say NC State can't possibly be super excited for this game, right, J-Mark?
No, they're not. They're obviously Grayson McCall retired midseason because of head trauma and stuff. I don't know the backup quarterback too well. I do know their star receiver, I think Concepcion, is in the portal currently, and he's a big piece of their offense. So the offense will probably be a little flatter, but like Clayton said, East Carolina is nothing special out of the Group of 5. I do kind of think that North Carolina State should just handle business here, but again, it just depends, just the sheer amount of North Carolina State talent that's not going to play.
Yeah, you touch on that Grayson McCall. He was going to be an NFL quarterback. He was really good at Coastal Carolina. Man, that's a tough situation for him. Tough situation for NC State. BYU's playing Colorado. I really want to take BYU. This one feels like a little fruit. Is Hunter and Shador going to play? It's the Alamo Bowl. I don't know. If I'm Colorado, I'm probably not having these guys play. But if Deion's going to stay there and recruiting, I don't know. I don't have the energy right this second to go through Colorado and all the dynamics in play there. BYU, I know is if they weren't playing Colorado, I would say, man, they got nothing to play for. But the fact that they're playing, a team that's going to get a lot of attention, and they weren't supposed to be good this year, so I don't know how. I don't know. It's hard to figure out BYU. They overachieved, and then they just could not get the one win down the stretch. What do you think here, JMart?
I mean, it's a hilarious matchup having BYU play Deion Sanders, Colorado. It's like a culture war between Utah and the Buffs. But I do think, like I said with the Miami game, I think the value's probably with BYU. I don't think Shador should play. I don't think Travis Hunter should play. I think they should really sit this game out. There's just not much to play for. You get Deion a bowl game, or you could go get just get drafted in top 5. And BYU, they will show up to play. It's the Mormons will come out. They're ready to play. And I think even heads up, there's a sneaky chance BYU beats a fully stacked up Colorado team just based off the defensive line and stuff like that. I do like BYU here a good bit. Yeah.
And Clayton, the spread's probably signaling that Colorado's best players aren't going to play because they're only a 3-point favorite. I would think if these guys were locked in to be closer to 7 or 8. That's a good point about the defensive line. Do you see it the same way, Clayton, or is Colorado because Colorado's defensive line is pretty good too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually thought Dion was saying that a lot of those guys were going to play. I don't know if that's just him talking. At the end of the day, it's their choice. I don't think they should play either. But like Jack was saying, I think even if this was just a regular season matchup, which it could be, it's a conference game, so strange for a bowl game. But if this was just a regular season matchup, I think BYU would still have a really good chance. So I think you'll definitely have at least someone from Colorado pulled out. Line's really close right now, so I'm going to lean BYU.
Cool. And then some of these games, obviously, they're a few weeks from now. The reason, just to clarify, people are listening, the reason we're doing the pod, all of the games at once now, is because if you're doing parlays or you wanted to put them together, I just didn't want to do 35 different pods for 3 games here and 4 games there. So let's keep going. We got a handful left. Marshall and Army. That one, obviously, we'll see how Army looks today, but it's 16.5 points. Marshall just won the championship. You're laughing. Army's going to kill him.
Marshall, I don't think has a team currently.
Here, I don't know this.
Their coach didn't get he got non-tendered on his contract after winning the conference, and the team's just not. I don't think they're playing now. Like I think they're just holding out until he gets a deal. And yeah.
Well, I wish you would have told me that 45. We could have just done a pod on that. That sounds fascinating.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing, he took the job at Southern Miss, who was the worst team in that conference, and I think pretty much his. I guess so. And it seems like pretty much, I think they said at least 30 players are in the transfer portal. I legit don't know if they'll be able to field a team for this game.
Let me see if I can bet on Army right this second. I think that might be the right move then. Wow. Okay. That sounds interesting. I'll tell you what, as a coach, that's the best feeling in the world. Oh my God. You guys don't want to pay me and all my players just aren't going to play because of it?
No, yeah. And Army will definitely have a team. I do know that. I don't think anyone's hopping in the portal out of Army.
Hey, listen, if they don't have a team, we need to all find a different country potentially to move to. I don't think the Army is going anywhere. God help us. All right, Iowa, Missouri. Can I bet the under in this game? Now we've moved on to not Sunday. Now we're at another Monday. So this is the standalone game on a Monday. Iowa and Missouri. The total's 40. Iowa in a bowl game. Can I bet the under here? Missouri's actually I say that, but then Tennessee killed Iowa last year in the bowl game. Missouri's -3. Clayton, what do you got?
I think you could bet the under. I don't think Luther Burden will be playing for Missouri. There's a chance. I'm not sure if Brady Cook's going to be playing either. So, yeah, I think if those two aren't playing, that's kind of their most dynamic part of their offense. Iowa's obviously got a solid defense, but when it comes to offense for them, they tend to struggle. So I think it'll be really low scoring, especially if Missouri's just not going to have their offensive weapons.
JMart, before you go, I have a senior moment I have to announce because Kirk Ferentz, I didn't realize he was the oldest college football coach before Belichick got hired. He's 69. And for my entire life when I was a kid, he was always the next hot, head coach for the NFL. And I really think it used to be because he was like an offensive mind. I don't understand what's going on. But Iowa is the same team every single year, pretty much. Any breaking news here, thoughts on this game that we need to know about, or is it just going to be 17-14 one way or the other?
Look, Luther Burden not playing takes out all the explosiveness from that Missouri offense. They were already a team that liked to run the ball like 30 times a game, and now you take out their best receiving weapon. I don't trust Brady Cook to really – I don't think he should be playing either, if we're being honest. I don't think there's any point. So it's just going to be Missouri running the ball at Iowa, Iowa running the ball at Missouri. If you want to watch that, go for it. I think it's just one of those games where, yeah, I think they're going to score like 20 points total, and it's just going to be – that's going to be it. Yeah.
So Alabama's playing Michigan on New Year's Eve, but it just doesn't mean anything because it is the ReliaQuest Bowl, whatever company that is. I'm sure it's a great company of some sort. Alabama's favored by 10. I read somewhere some college – I forget the guy's name, but it was a college football expert whose favorite game out of all the bowl games was Michigan +10, and that just made me be like, really? Like Michigan? Like I thought they just won the championship by beating Ohio State. Isn't Alabama going to kill them? Or is Alabama not anything to play for? Give me some insight into Alabama right now, JMart. What are they thinking? because they're not as happy as you are as a Georgia fan, right? Alabama's on the outside looking in.
Well, yeah, I heard yesterday that Justice Haynes is in the portal, so that's one of the big running backs for Alabama gone. I think Jalen Milroe probably just sits out for the draft. He's looking like a top 10 pick. There's really no reason to risk it against a really physical Michigan defense. And then, yeah, on the other side of the ball, I don't think Michigan's going to lose that much. Like they have, I think, tight end might go. Colson Loveland probably has a good chance of going to the draft, but I think he's just going to play the bowl game anyways.
I love it.
It seems like the kind of personality type he has. And yeah, I think Bama's going to lose a lot of guys on defense in the portal. I think it'll be a much more bare bones Bama team playing this game. Because again, yeah, you're playing a 7-5 Michigan team. It's like there's not that much to play for here. And Michigan, yeah, they have a bunch to play for. They're in a big bowl game against a top ranked team. Why not go out and try and win it? I do think Michigan's just going to have the momentum on their side. And yeah, I think they'll just be able to play a better game, honestly.
And then also because there's nothing really to play for, the revenge factor of like, oh, Alabama wants to avenge the loss. It's like, yeah, but a lot of those guys aren't playing anyway. So, all right, JMarts make me think Michigan. Clayton, you like Michigan too?
Given all those things, I do lean Michigan. I think Jalen Milroe actually said he's still going to play in this game, which surprised me. But I think they've got some receivers in the portal. Obviously, one of their running backs is gone. I'm not sure if they've still got Miller or not. But yeah, I really don't know what to think of this Alabama team because it's different from the one I've been looking at all year. But given that Michigan's got the momentum, they probably care a little bit more. I think they've definitely got a good shot, especially against the spread. Alabama favored by 10 right now.
And you know what? The more I'm thinking about it is because Ohio State wanted to start a brawl, that probably just makes Michigan even more closer together. Yeah, I'm going to lean Michigan here too as well. So Louisville, Washington. Washington, the home without a conference. Louisville, -2.5. I've not seen too much of either of these teams this year. So, Clayton, what do you got?
Yeah, Louisville's had some strong wins. They went and beat Clemson on the road. Never easy to do. But they both kind of seem like teams that were just kind of average, lost to good teams, beat the bad teams. I do like Louisville, knowing what I know about them, but I can't say too much.
JMart, you a Washington Husky expert?
I know they had a defense that was actually able to like stand toe to toe with a lot of the other Big Ten defenses this year. Outside, and then Louisville has a pretty solid offense, so I think it is their strengths on each side work towards each other. So I would lean Louisville. I think Louisville is kind of better all season than Washington, but again, Washington's a good defensive team. Louisville might be missing skill position guys. Can all affect it a good bit.
All right, I have a good feeling we're going to disagree on this one. Unless you don't want to give your 9.5 points, Clayton, because I know JMark's definitely taking this 9.5 points with Illinois, South Carolina, Illinois in the Citrus Bowl. Clayton, go make your argument here for South Carolina. Are they excited to play in this game? Because they didn't really get screwed out of the playoffs. They're having a good year. They probably feel like they can make the playoffs next year. So is this like a momentum building win for them as they destroy Illinois? Is that how you see it playing out?
I do think we have a good chance against the spread. Obviously, I'm going to have a biased view, but I think there are going to be a lot of guys that do play in this game. Lenore Sellers obviously going to play in this game. I don't think Illinois will be able to do a lot to stop what South Carolina's offense has been in recent games. However, South Carolina does have some defensive players sitting out. I think Kyle Kennard, SEC Defensive Player of the Year, won't be playing in that. I doubt Nick Emanwari will be. He's supposed to be pretty highly drafted DB. And there are just a lot of seniors on that South Carolina defense. So I think it comes down to who all sits out. But I think if you have a pretty similar roster from what South Carolina's had for most of the year, I would definitely take them with that line.
So you feel more comfortable with a 6-point teaser in case they don't blow them out?
I would take that even with people sitting out. I'm still confident that South Carolina is the better, more dynamic team.
JMart, Illinois is going to beat them, aren't they?
I mean, look, all I'll say is Lenore Sellers hasn't seen a Big Ten defense yet, and it's a different kind of defense. It's a unique one. I think Illinois will probably be missing a couple guys, but typically Illinois fields their whole team for bowl games.
Why do you think it's? I was gonna say, why is it so many points? Because Illinois is pretty good, right?
Yeah, Illinois has been a great team. It's just I do think that they aren't as dynamic, and they haven't really knocked off anyone. Like their big wins early in the season were to like Kansas, who didn't make a bowl or anything, and then like Nebraska ended up ranked at one point, and Illinois beat them.
Right.
What I will say is, South Carolina will be weaker on defense. It will let Luke Altmaier kind of this is his chance to show if he's got something that an NFL team wants. Maybe he can like sneak into the draft or something. He's got a lot to play for, but ultimately, I do think South Carolina is objectively way better. I do really think that they should win the game. They probably will, and they probably should cover too, honestly.
Can I please bet Baylor? Can you guys endorse this? I want to bet against Brian Kelly. It's the Texas Bowl. So it's basically a home game here for Baylor. It's a 1-point spread, which makes me think I really can take Baylor because I feel like the square bettors would want to take LSU. It's only a 1-point spread. This Brian Kelly situation is a disaster. Like, the more time he spends with the players, I feel like the worse. If he just went on vacation for a month and they just didn't have a coach, I would be like, LSU will probably win this game by 2 touchdowns. Brian Kelly's there, so I want to take Baylor, but I don't know too much about Baylor. Clayton, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I kind of want to see what happens with LSU's roster because I know they're probably going to have a lot of guys jumping into the transfer portal, but they're still really talented. So I definitely want to wait to see what happens there. But Baylor has been super hot down the stretch. I think they've won like 5 or 6 straight. Most of those being pretty convincing wins against solid Big 12 teams. So I think they've definitely got a good chance.
Thoughts, JMart?
Yeah, I agree. I think Baylor's been great down the stretch. And, yeah, this LSU team has literally nothing to play for. They don't even like the coach, I don't think. So
they're going to bring him back, though, right? Like, they are going to bring Brian Kelly back.
I think they gave him way too much money to let him walk at this point. They dug their own grave. What I will say, I don't know if Garrett Nussmeier's playing. I know he screwed up his arm pretty bad in the game against Florida. If he does, though, this is, again, like for Luke Altmaier, this is his Super Bowl. This is his chance to show everyone what he can do in a bowl game against a really solid defense. Maybe he tries. I don't know, though. I do lean Baylor here.
I think Nussmeier did say he was staying another year, though. So we'll see if he even plays.
Yeah. And then we got Duke. We're getting down to 4. So Duke, Ole Miss. Ole Miss is a big favorite, 14.5 points. I don't know much about Duke, but I like to bet against Lane Kiffin and a team that they don't have a ton to play for. But it's a standalone game, and that kind of makes me think Ole Miss might kill them. Like, if this game was like in the middle of the day with 3 other games, but it's going to be by itself, 7:30 at night, kind of feels like Lane Kiffin's going to put on a show. The total's only 52.5. Can I get some insight here, JMart, on Duke's program and how they potentially can match up against Ole Miss?
Yeah, Duke had been a solid offensive team all year. They had, I think, Malik Murphy was the quarterback. He'd been really good all season, but he's out. He's in the portal now. Duke doesn't have a quarterback. Ole Miss was already a way better team. I don't know how many of their guys are actually going to play, but I think I assume they will field a good enough roster to still really just bury Duke. This doesn't feel like a competitive game at all. A 52-point total is kind of ridiculous because if Ole Miss is going to roll, they're going to score 52 on their own. The other team's going to score like 10. They're going to make sure to blow them out. Lane Kiffin has a point to prove here. He wants to prove that his team should have made it or whatever.
Yeah.
He'll try and prove that point. I think they're going to just kill him. I think it gets ugly early.
Clayton, you agree with that?
Yeah, I think Duke without their quarterback just doesn't really stand a chance. Even with him playing, I don't think they would be able to match up with Ole Miss. But Ole Miss is just so much more talented. If for some reason Jackson Dart wasn't to play, they've got depth at quarterback. One of the most talented teams in the SEC. So I think they've got this pretty easy.
Any strong opinions on the First Responders Bowl? North Texas, Texas State. Texas State's a 10-point favorite. Like, you got anything on that one?
Nothing on this one.
JMart?
I think Texas State is the better team. That's about it, though.
Yeah. Well, I think so, too. They're a 10-point favorite. So we'll leave that one alone. Minnesota, they're favored by 6 against Virginia Tech. I like Minnesota. I think that they're a good program. They play really good defense, but 6 points against Virginia Tech seems like a solid amount. I don't know too much about Virginia Tech's program. Clayton, what do we think about this game?
Yeah, I liked how Minnesota looked. While they did lose a couple games down the stretch, they were really close against Penn State. I think they beat Illinois as well. So going off that, I do like that. Virginia Tech's just another one of those teams that kind of lost every game that they should lost, beat the teams they should beat. So I do like and understand why Minnesota is favored.
6-point favorite. JMart, you agree with Minnesota being a 6-point favorite, or is there value with Virginia Tech?
I really like Minnesota as a team. They did beat Illinois, and they looked really good doing it. I do think they would just win this game. Really, really strong defense and a really just good run offense. It's your prototypical Minnesota football program.
Yeah, they almost beat Penn State at the end of the year.
No, yeah, they're a dangerous team, and they're getting hot at the right time. And again, with a Big Ten team, most of that team will probably play this game. What I will say is Virginia Tech did play a lot of teams pretty close. So 6 points is a big gap for them as a team. They keep the games within one possession pretty consistently. I do like Minnesota to win. I do think there's a world where Virginia kind of does like a little backdoor cover on this, like just a little like sneak it in at the end. But I think it stays close the whole time. I don't think Minnesota really ever loses control of the game, though.
And last but not least, well, I think it might be least, it's Buffalo Liberty. It's the Bahamas Bowl. Both those teams are happy to be there. I know 100%. Are you kidding me? Buffalo, New York, Liberty, Virginia to the Bahamas. That sounds fantastic. It's a 1-point spread. I played with Buffalo in the college football game and beat Colorado, in case anybody cared about that. I was proud of myself, and it was on Heisman. That's it. That's all I got for Buffalo and Liberty. Liberty is supposed to be good this year. They were projected to be one of the top teams to make it. Any thoughts on this game, JMart?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Liberty was supposed to be good this year, and then Kennesaw State somehow beat them, and then their season fell apart. If there was one thing about this game that you could have looked towards to watch, it would be Caden Salter at quarterback, but he's not even playing. He entered the portal about as soon as he could. If you feel really good about either of these teams, bet on it, but I just don't know any.
I'm going to leave Buffalo. I'm going Buffalo, wherever that's worth. Clayton, you got thoughts on this one, or should we go Navy Army and get out of here?
Yeah, about the same as Jack. Liberty lost their quarterback. It's hard to tell. They had the loss against Kennesaw State as well, and I'm a big fan of Pete Limbo, Buffalo's coach, so I'm hoping he can get it done. But really close line, kind of hard to see what's going to happen there.
Hindsight being what it was, the fact that we went an hour, I probably should have just started with Army Navy, but instead I didn't. We went the other way, and the internet held up, so thank God for that. Let's just finish for a couple minutes, and then we'll get people out of here. So if you listened all the way to the end today, I certainly appreciate that. And hopefully you'll be rewarded with some expert advice for this game, because it is by far the best football game every single year if you just appreciate the country and just appreciate what football actually means. It's just awesome. So I have not been the one, which is embarrassing because they're always right, my neck of the woods. But anyway, Navy Army, it's Army minus 6.5. It's always crazy. I don't know how we handicap it. So go ahead, J-Mart. Just tell me what you think. How's the game going to play out? The total's 39. And go ahead. What do you think?
Yeah, like you're saying, it's tough to project what happens in these games. I think the line is right. I think it's true. I do think Army is probably a touchdown better. I think they've run the triple option a little more efficiently this year, and I love Bryson Daly at quarterback. He's just been ridiculous for Army this year. I do look at Navy. I like Horvath. I think he's been a really solid quarterback, and I kind of like Navy's defense a little more. I thought it's been a little bit better than Army's, but at the same time, I think Army I think they're just the better team. That being said, this game goes either way every year. Like, it's just really hard to project who actually wins this game. And when they're this close together in talent, I do think that this is one that can go either way. I think the line's right. I think Army should win by a touchdown. That being said, I could see Navy winning by like 10 as well.
Clayton, I feel like we should just ask Notre Dame who should win this game, right? Because they ruined both of their team seasons. How do you see it playing out? You think Navy pulls it out? Or maybe a better question is, what's more likely, that Army covers, beats them by 10, 14 points, or that Navy actually wins outright?
I think it's more likely that Army covers. I just see them being the better team, given that they're from the same conference, have a lot of common opponents. I like Army. I don't know too much about either team. I know that when it comes to those military schools, when it comes to talent, they're usually not as high up as probably some other teams in their conference even. But yeah, I like Army just given their performance against similar opponents.
Well, I really appreciate it. I knew there was a lot of bowl games. Frankly, as I'm scrolling through to go to the next game, I would catch myself. I'm like, there's another 14 games left. But you know what? This is good. I'm glad we did it. We'll keep this pod up, and basically I'll post it a couple of different times as some of these games get closer. And if something changes, we'll discuss it. All of your bets will come out when we get closer to the actual games. If you guys like anything 3-4 days beforehand, feel free to shoot it over. Good luck to everybody today. Appreciate you guys listening. I think it's the longest pod we did. So you guys have a great day. JMart, I'll see you. We'll do our Tuesday show, and then next week, the three of us will get together and we'll put out our playoff preview. That'll come out on Friday as Notre Dame will play Indiana next Friday night. So, all right, have a good day. Enjoy the Navy Army game, and good luck on all your bets.
Sounds good.